Teachers of Reddit, what are some positive trends you have noticed in today's youth? Kids are much more kind and accepting of those with special needs. Just more kind and accepting in general, actually. Some people are little. Some people are big. As wide as a redwood. As thin as a twig. Some people are tiny. Some people are tall. And others are massive, but maybe not all. Some people have brown eyes. Some people have blue. And some don't wear glasses, but some people do. Some people have short hair. Some people have long. And some folks are sturdy, and some not so strong. Some people are silly. Some people are strange. And some people alter, and some never change. Some people are oddballs, and others bizarre. But everyone's people. That's just how we are. To add on to that, our school almost has like no bullies other than just the popular girl group being a popular girl group. I have tons of friends in different grades and almost no one is downright awful to anyone. They may talk smack about that person or whatever, but no one physically or mentally bullies anyone. It is a great thing to grow up in such a nice school. They've seen the severe outcomes that can result from bullying and ostracizing people. They don't want to be shot at school, for one thing. Nor do they want to see social media posts where their friends are crying their eyes out because of how mean people are, or go to funerals, or have their school famous for a fist fight where someone died or what have you. In short, I'm not saying it's only self-preservation. I'm saying they've seen enough to know they don't want to be the cause of any of it. Say what you will about Fortnite, but kids thank the bus driver now way more than they used to. Take my poor Mons gold sports medal. I'm out of the loop, what has that got to do with Fortnite? Johnny thanked the bus driver you bought. Johnny has thanked the bus driver. I teach year 1, I've noticed that they care a lot about the environment. Always wanting to recycle, stop driving cars because of the smoke. One kid even saw me drive into school and told me I wasn't caring about the environment and should ride a bike. They're also incredibly empathetic. Towards their friends, peers, animals, doesn't matter. For 6-7-year-olds who are typically supposed to be self-absorbed, I think this is pretty cool. There are very accepting as well. There's a boy in the class next door with ASD, and occasionally when he has a meltdown, the kids from next door come to my class. After explaining why, all of my kids understand that his brain works differently and at the moment, his brain is probably confused and doesn't know how to process his feelings. None of them make fun of him, call him bad or naughty, which I think definitely would have happened when I was a kid. My 6-year-old just finished kindergarten, and there were 2 kids in his class with some sort of issues that caused them to act out sometimes. My kid came home once and just stated as fact that Jonah had a bad day at school. He needed help from our classroom helper to make his body settle down, so we were all quiet for a bit to help him out. And the caring and understanding in that statement just gets me right in the feels. When I was that age we were all jerks, and you made fun of the kids who acted out. I'm so glad my kid's generation is learning to be caring and empathetic. That sounds like some damn fine teaching going on at your school. Well done. Credit to the parents too, it has to be supported at home. But it's at school they get the words to express it like this. You guys are not paid enough. Thank you. There are very accepting as well. There's a boy in the class next door with ASD, and occasionally when he has a meltdown, the kids from next door come to my class. After explaining why, all of my kids understand that his brain works differently and at the moment, his brain is probably confused and doesn't know how to process his feelings. None of them make fun of him, call him bad or naughty, which I think definitely would have happened when I was a kid. This really hit home for me. I have a learning difficulty that has affected me my entire life and left me friendless for my whole childhood. I always felt misunderstood and that people didn't want me around because I was different. Having this level of understanding and acceptance would have radically changed my life in very positive ways. I am so proud of this generation for being so open and accepting to stuff like this. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It goes a long way for me to know that there is a whole generation of people who won't have to struggle like I did and they won't have to go through the horrors that I went through. Truly, this touched my heart and brought a smile to me. Thank you. Oh snap. That hit me in the feels. Nerd, geek culture is more accepted. That would mean less bullying, which is great. Kids care about the environment, which is more than can be said for a lot of their parents. I've met so many parents who've said that they don't have time to recycle. Yet they're content in bringing people into a world of shit which they continue to help destroy. Collaborative learning through taking class notes on things like shared Google Docs. Students add in comments where they don't understand parts of a lecture, and other students will explain. Hey, that's a genius idea. I'll steal it. I went to college much older than the norm and this blew my mind. We also had shared Dropboxes, flashcards, and even lived Google Doc notes. Wait, this sounds fun. How do you introduce the concept to them and what kind of activity is it more successful? They're more pragmatic about the choices they make, taking measures to reduce the amount of student debt they are going to accrue. They are also much more accepting of people of other cultures. Much less discrimination, it seems. There is the common depiction of the entitled college student nowadays, but at least where I have been teaching in the Midwest, most students are holding down side jobs and generally working pretty hard. Not a teacher, but I work at a university in an administrative capacity. A huge part of our future plans for admitting Gen Z students is offering things like financial counseling to help people figure out how to afford college, because they are well known to be more cautious and conservative about such things. I have noticed that my freshmen, for the most part, tend to be very open, I guess is the right word. They seem to readily share their thoughts, ideas, problems, etc. with each other. They put each other's fingerprints in their phones, readily share them, and don't really have anything to hide. They are also super honest and upfront with me. I don't know if this is truly going to turn out to be a positive thing in the long run, but their expectations of privacy are very different than mine. I think it is an offshoot of social media culture. I've said that about my kids and their friends, these generations are unblackmailable. This is a wonderful thing, because so many horrors come from shame and secrecy. There's been so much evil done in the past through manipulating people using shame. From the blackmailing of gays, to self-hatred and its projection. But I can't see it happening anymore. These kids won't have it. They are open about their problems, and they are incredibly supportive of each other during difficulties. They're growing into adults that just are not motivated by those fears or those secrets. It's amazing. I love the young. Sometimes I feel like I'm teaching a class of my peers and it encourages a more open atmosphere where all ideas lead to something productive. I love it. When kids actually commit to something, they are extremely resourceful. I feel like it's being raised with the internet at their fingertips. My daughter is 4 and her preschool is teaching her Spanish. At home, when she wants to know the Spanish word for something, she asks me to Google it on my phone. It's so crazy. This is probably going to get lost, but I teach emotionally disturbed kids who can't attend mainstream high school because of their behavior. These are kids that treat the majority of the people they interact with like shit. They use slurs and swear and can just be all-round horrible to each other. We have one kid who's full-on autistic, but the parents refuse to have him diagnosed, so he's with us, not in an autism unit. They don't say a word to him. They listen to him rant about chickens and rabbits and even ask him questions about it. It's so bizarre to see kids frothing at the mouth and calling me a fucking cunt and then gently redirecting the autistic kid away. They're so much more accepting of disabilities than my gen was. It's great. We have one kid who's full-on autistic, but the parents refuse to have him diagnosed, so he's with us, not in an autism unit. You're not saying frustrated teacher in the UK, but I'm hearing it. Kids are incredibly intelligent. Because of the internet they have now, they can learn about anything whenever and quickly. They also learn more because parenting is improved, teaching is improved, and so they have so much more research on what they're doing that they become more efficient. The resumes I see from high school students are better than what I had graduating from college. I'd also second that they are much kinder. Some of the things I overhear flabbergast me with how different things are from when I was in high school 18 years ago. We're consistently teaching more life skills in high school as well. We teach resume writing in my senior English class, conduct mock interviews with real companies, our state requires a financial literacy course for a diploma, etc. It seems to me that students today are increasingly more aware, curious, and resourceful, everything from climate change to science, from the arts to socio-political considerations. They question things more directly, and are adept at exploring and finding answers as they adroitly navigate the internet. Imagine growing up and anything that interested you just look it up. Is making for very smart kids. I learned a new word today, adroitly. Thank you, teacher. I do sex ed for 14 to 16-year-olds. They always ask how to satisfy the opposite sex and seem less selfish. Probably because TV and movies have made the joke about the unsatisfied spouse for like 30 years. Is this the US? Is that what age this happens? Seems way too late though, right? In Australia you do sex ed for years 5 and 6, which is 10 to 12 years old. I think some places do it in older years, but I don't even know if my high school did it at all. Of course we had the class in science, but not about your bodies. I think 10 to 12 makes sense, as girls tend to his puberty around then, and boys about 12 to 13 on average. But what do I know lol? Also I'd hope by 16 you would know most things about how sex works, maybe not like, all the details, but surely you know how reproduction works, right? Honestly, everything is better today. Kids are emo, smarter, kinder, more aware of the world around them. On that last point, I think that's completely due to the internet age. They have access to so much more than we did, and a lot of them use that power really well. Kids start to raise their voice and spread their ideas towards the world earlier and start to show a better ability to solve daily problems, with ingenious and imaginative solutions. A few decades ago, finding a minor that was an activist would be extremely rare. Nowadays, a lot of them are actually trying to change even the slightest of world issues. I don't think this is a new thing. IDK about high schoolers but college students, who aren't much older, used to be a huge driving force of activism in the last century. I'd say they're better at forming their own opinions on issues and morals, which I would largely attribute to their access to the internet and thus getting to see and hear a wider variety of viewpoints. I remember when it used to be that my dad likes Bush so I like Bush kind of thing, but now I hear kids have actually individual viewpoints and intelligent conversations about world issues. Plus, I feel like they're more open and honest. It's not uncommon for kids to tell me how they're feeling or what's going on with them in their personal lives or what they think of what's going on with the class or me, usually all of this without any prompting. It helps me adjust to what they need and feel and want, and also just helps us build that bond. When I was their age, 7th grade, I was a steel trap when it came to talking to teachers about what was going on with me, and pretty much all my peers were the same. Kids accept one another without it really being a big deal. We've had kids come out as gay, trans, etc., and no one bats an eye anymore. It's excellent. I agree except for one demographic. Black boys. My black male students hate anything that isn't 100% heterosexual. It's strange because every other demographic of student is okay with homosexuality, but for whatever reason almost every black boy isn't. Urban middle school. Being kinder to animals, jerks I grew up with used to hit strays with stones and sticks. Definitely more accepting and open of LGBT friends, family, and celebrities. A lot of the middle schoolers I've worked with in the last few years are actively confused by the way so many adults make a huge deal out of it. When I was teaching, a student asked me if I was married, I said no. Then he asked if I had a boyfriend or girlfriend. The fact that he presented both options made me realize I was interacting with a very different generation. I thought this was true. Until people started spreading rumors I was gay and started to openly say how they're against gays and starting harassing me. But I think this differs from country to country. I teach 2nd grade. They are much kinder and they are much better readers than kids even 10 years ago. I'm surprised to have to scroll so far down to find this. Illiteracy was a problem well into this century, since lots of poor students would also mean they're not reading. Now, kids are immersed into reading at about the same time they can talk because of that evil cell phone technology. My girlfriend's 7-year-old daughter was already reading before kindergarten. I don't think we were taught to put letters together until the end of kindergarten or 1st grade, I can't remember. Japanese kids are still polite. I taught a seminar at a Japanese middle school for a day about 10 years ago and was impressed. The kids were so polite. Also, they had no custodial staff, the kids cleaned everything themselves, so there was positive peer pressure about keeping the place tidy. Boys feeling free to show affection towards each other and being more intimate and physical in their interactions. Makes the boys happier and contributes to an overall better classroom environment. In Russia, I've noticed the rise of denial of authorities and critical thinking towards the official capitalist propaganda, which is a good sign that during the next generation or even this one's lifetime a socialist revolution may happen. You don't sound like a very peaceful comrade. They literally DGAF if someone is LGBT+ at all. I still see people use gay as an attack on each other, but if someone is truly LGBT+, they don't treat them any differently or bully them because of it. It's this weird disconnect that they don't understand when they say you're gay in a negative way, that they're actually attacking LGBT+ people. But when my trans student's preferred pronoun is he, the entire student body uses the preferred pronoun. Only the other teachers don't. It's a big shift. Not a teacher, but I've noticed the younger generation will not accept just any job with lousy pay. This is positive because eventually the scale on lower labor for more work will be tipped as there will be shortages. Also, the younger generation aren't afraid to tell their bosses that whatever extra work is not required of them or is not within their job description. A lot of companies has been taking advantage of people recently. Lots of girls are openly bisexual in the middle school I work for. Most boys still live in fear of being labeled gay. I once overheard a kissing game going on where the boy said he wouldn't kiss another boy because he would be made fun of, but he never joked, became angry, or tried to affirm his masculinity as it would have been mandatory 15 years ago when I was a student. He said no and game on, and I never let them know I knew a kissing game was going on. Doing drugs, alcohol, smoking is not cool anymore. Disagree. But there has been a substantial drop in smoking. Cigarettes at least. Not a teacher, but I've noticed a thing going around my school that the whole class tends to band together and become like a family. Also, if a random person, whether child, teacher or even parent, harasses one of them, they kinda band and attack the person, usually with words and death threats for the kids. They're more aware of the general goings on in the world and have a strong sense of justice. Along with that, as others have mentioned in this thread, they are more accepting of differences. The bully-victim trope is less of a thing now, where I am, at least, and kids usually love and let live. The flip side of this is that a lot of kids are getting faulty information and a lot of them carry fairly shocking, uninformed opinions because of what they've heard or read on the internet. More popular kids, stronger, standing up for the weaker, different. Not a teacher. But a security officer in a college. Kids today do the whole high school thing much better than my generation did. No one was out when I was in high school. It would have been suicide to have the slightest lisp to you voice, or wear the wrong color. LGBTQ kids still get bullied, and to extremes in some cases, but it's no longer a death sentence. That's progress. It's part of an overall trend of acceptance. I remember some years ago, we had a kid who had extreme anxiety issues. David was bright, very capable, and could actually do things like read a part while doing a play in class. However, he spoke in an incredibly low voice and had a lot of difficulty in the school environment. He always left class last because he had trouble in crowds. If you saw him coming down the hallway, you could give him space, he could see you coming from 50 feet away, but when you said, "Hi David," he would be startled. He would always say hi back and smile, but it was clear that he was struggling with just being in school. In my day he would have been a victim. I kept an eye on him the first few weeks that I was at that school. It didn't take long before I figured out that he was the safest kid at that school. The other kids looked after him. They gave substitutes a heads up if teachers forgot to mention that he typically left a minute early or showed up a minute late. Everyone respected his issues, but still talked to him, tried to make him comfortable and involved, even though the kid couldn't really have a conversation. I remain convinced that if someone, for example, pushed that kid into a locker, we would have had to segregate that bully from the rest of the population. It wouldn't have been safe for anyone who bullied David. The most vulnerable member of the population was the safest one. It honestly makes me tear up a bit thinking of how well they treated that kid. Also, as annoying as it can be sometimes, today's youth challenge authority. My generation was overly compliant. We rebelled, but as a group, or in groups. I cannot tell you how many times I've been questioned by students in class. Like I said, annoying at times, but it's a good thing. A lot of adults see the bad side of this. Yes, oftentimes questioning me comes with a helping of virtue signaling, or attention seeking, but those are negative aspects of a beautiful trend. This generation engages in critical thinking. We're still pushing them to do more, especially when it comes to subjects and people that they like, but they're doing a lot better than generations that extol their superiority while actively sharing bullshit propaganda on Facebook. I could go on about this all day, but the bottom line is that today's youth are better. We created the internet and allowed them to essentially access it unfiltered. We were so happy with what we created that we didn't think to make up rules for it other than, check this box if you're over 18. We then criticize kids for how they've handled being thrown into the very deep and dangerous waters of having an unregulated online presence. I'll stop now. Just one last thing, it seems like we criticize kids mainly for being different than we were, having different interests or ways of dressing. They are different, but mostly in ways that show us what our generation lacked. As everyone else has said, kids' empathies are through the roof. They're more connected to each other, and while that can cause problems and bullying, a lot of which we can't see, e.g. Snapchat, it also means they genuinely know each other better. Something we've also focused on, which has changed from even 4 to 5 years ago, is their health and level of stress. While they still want to get into a good college at my school, they're starting to focus on finding the right school for them, which very rarely is an Ivy. I commend them a ton, because I still have that elitism bias, but I'm working on it. Also, kids are more outspoken about their identity. The number of trans kids at my small school seems high, but is really the appropriate size for the grade level, according to average statistics. We're offering training next year to all of our seniors to lead discussions on race, bias, inequality, etc., because they demanded that we do so. I love that they're willing to advocate for themselves and what they need. It makes my job so much rewarding when I know we're providing what they need.